Ladies and gentlemen, tonight the affirmative team have told us that we should tie the government's hand behind its back. They have told us that until 2050, when oil runs out, we will still be using big cars because average Joe does not have enough of an incentive to change. They have told us that change is bad. But now, at this point in the debate, it should be clear that the case that they'll be running is a cynical one, which does not recognize the threshold that we are at. The threshold that our society is at, under which it can take a decisive step towards change. A step that has, in our society, fallen upon carbon trading. And if we have to take this step, then it has to be one that is holistic, one that addresses every part of the system. And this is what this debate has been about. Addressing every part of the system, assuring that there are no loopholes, and assuring that essentially we give the power back to the people who can change it, back to the consumer, and take it away from those that are only interested in the profit motive. Take it away from the petrol companies. With that in mind, there are three main questions in this debate. Whether average Joe will be adversely affected, whether our economy can adapt to the model that Kevin Rudd is planning to implement under the status quo, and what the timescale will be of these changes. Now to the first question. Will average Joe be adversely affected? Now the way that the negative team sees this is that average Joe will be pressured but not hurt. He will hang in there. The affirmative team has told us that Joe already has many enemies: interest rates, mortgage prices, whatnot. However, it is the negative team that have seen that the average Joe is in fact the agent in our society that has to be led in the right way. We want to pressure him into a new outlook, into an outlook of renewables, an outlook of public transport, an outlook in which he can change his lifestyle for the best. And telling him that it is not alright to keep driving his big car, telling him to react. And it has already been seen that average Joe can react. In America and in China, there has been a massive transition towards hybrid cars, a massive transition towards better urban planning in the face of massive population rise and in the face of high petrol prices. There is no reason why this would not happen here if the right incentive was given. If the incentive was given, which Rudd has been pushing from the very start in terms of this holistic model that is carbon trading across the board. So we as the negative team have told you all the ways in which average Joe can go into alternatives, into hybrid cars. While the affirmative team has blatantly ignored this, and furthermore has blatantly ignored the fact that high prices are lost, that Joe can keep feeding off the Bowser for decades. And as the negative team has pushed, this is not only not possible, but this is not only not viable under the current imperative to assist with reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but it is not possible due to the constraints of the current supply of oil, and this is something that I'll address later on in my speech. And let the affirmative team not fool you. We are alarmed but not alarmists. We are not hitting the panic buttons when affecting these working families, when affecting these individuals. We are pushing them simply in the right direction. Now to my second point. Whether our economy can adapt to such a model as Kevin Rudd is proposing. Now the affirmative told us that petrol prices will rise. They have told us that we will be limited in the transportation of goods. They have told us that we will be limited in the carbon-intensive production and consumption of certain goods. Their phrase is a bad thing. Why is this a bad thing? These things, what they do is they push our economy towards a new direction in which it will become more sustainable. It will become more sustainable in the way that many European economies have become more sustainable by adopting renewables and by reaching their targets and exceeding them by far for implementing models such as the one that Rudd is proposing. Even if the economy does slow down, as my second speaker said, it will slow down by a maximum of 0.1% or 1.1%, as the Stern Review has said. And the price of inaction, the price of waiting another few decades, maybe taking some action there when oil has already run out, and we will be naturally forced to go to sustainables. As affirmatives kept on pushing, this is simply not an option. This will cost 20 to 25 times more, and this is something that we cannot live with. Again, it has been the consistent line of the negative to say that there are many alternatives in the line of hybrid cars, different forms of energy, and biofuels. And it is the flow and effects that will go from the individual to industry that will bring about these renewables. Well, the affirmative team has ignored not only this, but have ignored the fact that our economy has no choice but to adapt. For we have international obligations by which we have to reduce our carbon emissions. The only thing they told us is that only 22% of our emissions are based on oil. And they have told us, that this is very little and it gives somehow oil companies disproportionate power. The negative team understands that this is a very big proportion. And this is what we have to change. And the way we change it is from the grassroots level, from the consumer, and then flow-on effects to the economy. So, thus, the economy can adapt, and it can adapt for the best. Now to the third question of what is the timescale of the problem and the solution? And by now it should be clear that high prices are good. The question is, when are they good? Now, the negative team believes that petrol prices are indeed at a bit of an uncertain stage right now, and it is time for the government to put in place this increase and to capture the imperative and immediacy of the problem right now. And the reason for this is that peak oil is expected to come about at any minute, and thresholds for environmental change, the West Antarctic ice shelf becoming completely sunk to the bottom of the ocean, and climate changing irreversibly. Those thresholds are coming. And if we do not act now, then we'll be in dire straits indeed. And it is not consistent with this logic. It is not what the affirmative has pushed today, saying that we should let average Joe wait a few more decades. This is not consistent with this logic at all. What they have told us is simply that we should act. They established this imperative at first, but they have not told us that we should act today. And they have not told us how the future will look if we act now, which the negative is much more optimistic, as we have made certain provisions in our case as to how the future will look, as to how bioplastics will come about, as to how public transport will grow, and there will be an incentive for it to grow, and how renewables will come about. So, having come to the conclusion that high prices are good, that they can instill important change in the individual and the economy, and that this has to happen now, it should be clear that the debate as to whether petrol companies should be exempted from the carbon trading scheme should fall on this side of the House. Thank you.
So it was a close debate and the issues were well fought on both sides, but I thought that the case of the negative tended to outflank the affirmative, and that very much telling us that the debate we're on. So I'm more than happy to answer questions from the individual speakers, but to win for Sydney High, congratulations to all the
I'd like to thank the second grade team from Ignatius for making the journey on the way over here. I'd like to thank them for very riveting debates. It was unfortunate that they matched these two sides at the beginning of the season. It was always going to be, a pretty close encounter. And we wish them luck for the rest of the season and for tomorrow. Start with the answers.
We'd like to thank Sydney Boys High for hosting this debate and making something quite boring reasonably interesting for a very long time. And we'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight. It's a huge crowd for debating. I'm very impressed, and thanks to the French people for coming. Merci pour venir.
I want to thank you all for attending this debate and invite you to join us for supper in the common room.